If you're sick and tired of paying a gazillion different subscriptions for your photo, video, and music streaming, there's good news. It's never been easier to host and stream your own media. In this video, I'll show you how my setup works, the type of hardware you need, and also the software that will allow you to get a Netflix and a Spotify style experience without opening ports or needing heavy technical knowledge. By the end, you'll have all the pieces to enjoy your content anywhere, at home, at work, or even while out running. So, let's get started. Before I show you how everything works, let me first answer the two questions that come up whenever I mention self-hosting. Why would I want to do that? And what's wrong with Netflix or Spotify? There's nothing inherently wrong with these services. If you like using them, you don't have to stop. I still have an Apple One subscription, but I also manage my own media collection. Occasionally, I will also sign up for Netflix or Disney Plus when there's something specific I want to watch. It's not an either-or situation. But hosting your own media comes with benefits that aren't always obvious. The first one is ownership. If you've ever bought a movie on Amazon or a similar platform, there's a chance it won't be there when you come back to watch it. What you paid for was a license for playback, and that license can be revoked when the content leaves the service. When you manage your own library, that simply doesn't happen. The second benefit is quality control. Some streaming services deliver 4K but at lower bit rates, so you end up paying more but without actually getting the expected level of quality. With your own files, you decide the bitrate, the format, how the subtitles look, and even the specific audio track to use. Another major benefit is the ability to watch the content in its original form. This is a big issue with many of the older TV shows. Up until the 90s, shows were shot with 4:3 aspect ratio in mind, and that informed how each scene was composed. But when these show up for streaming, a lot of them are recropped to a 16:9 aspect ratio, either cutting the top and bottom of the frame or extending the frame by using the recorded image outside the 4:3 safe area. Music can change too. A lot of these older productions have to deal with expired music rights or no rights at all for streaming. As a result, iconic songs are often replaced with new generic music that completely changes the scene and the overall feel of the show. With your own library, instead of relying on that new version, you can use the old DVDs or Blu-rays, preserving the show's original vision. And finally, because you're building your own library, you can watch and listen to more obscure stuff that might not even be available on a streaming service. Or if they are, you need yet another subscription. I hope by now I managed to convince you that building your own library not only makes sense, but it's the better way to go about it. The good news is that if you're old enough, you probably already have a ton of media sitting on your shelves. So, let's now see what you actually need to get up and running. You can go as low-tech or as overkill as you want. For media delivery, pretty much any setup can work. If you look at the HomeLab subreddit, you'll see everything from people running hundreds of terabytes and full racks, all the way down to using a spare laptop. It's up to you really, but I would say start super modest and modify things along the way. You could even start with a hard drive connected to your router. I wouldn't recommend it because the overall user experience won't be that great, but it could be as simple as that. For media playback, the most important thing is storage, not CPU or GPU power. You only need strong hardware if you plan on transcoding videos on the fly, but modern devices can play back any format directly, so transcoding isn't something you'll rely on. If I had to distill the hardware options, I would probably end up with 3 categories. The first one is to use what you already have, an old computer, a spare laptop, or even your current computer. Just add a large enough internal or external drive, and you're done. This is the cheapest and often the fastest option to get up and running. The second one is a low-powered NAS. This is what I went with. I'm using an old Synology from 2019. It's quiet, relatively efficient, and designed to run 24/7. And just to give you an idea of how underpowered this thing is, even the cheapest smartphone on the market right now will outperform this NAS. But it doesn't matter, it's not transcoding anything. All of my devices can play back 4K and H.265 content without any issues, so the NAS can deliver multiple streams to different devices without breaking a sweat. And the same goes for music. FLAC, MP3, MP4, uncompressed audio, it all plays back great. One of my older devices is this Apple TV from 2017, and it has no problems playing back any 4K content, no matter the format. So if your playback devices are built in the last, let's say 7 to 8 years, you can go with any NAS no matter how underpowered it is. Synology, ASUS, Ugreen, QNAP, it doesn't matter. It will all work absolutely fine. The third and final category is building a small PC dedicated to self-hosting in general, not just media playback. This is definitely a nice alternative, and like before, you don't have to spend much to get a setup that can do everything. But I would recommend going with a NAS first, since most of the stuff you will do with a PC, you can do with a NAS. One important thing to keep in mind, the initial cost of the hardware is not the only thing you need to pay attention to. There's also electricity costs. Since your setup will run 24/7, avoid super old hardware or a decked out system with a fast GPU and CPU. Both will require a lot of power to run, so try to find the right balance between initial and recurring costs. With my setup, I spend around 80 to 100 euros per year in electricity, but I also use it for work, so most of the time the drives are spinning, and I have 6 of them, so they will draw more power than a setup with 4 or 2 drives. As for storage size, it depends on the amount of data you have. I'm using 6 12TB drives that give me 40 terabytes of usable space, but as I mentioned, that space is also for work. If you're going to use your system just for media delivery, a single 12TB drive might be more than enough. Just to give you an idea, here's how my media library looks. My music takes up around 70 gigabytes, and that's for 100 or so artists, with multiple albums per artist. My photo collection is around 350 gigabytes for almost 20 years of photos and videos. TV shows are close to 2 terabytes, which is around 80 shows, and my movie collection is around the same size. 2 terabytes for close to 1,000 movies in various different qualities, anything from DVD to 2K and 4K quality. So all in all, my media collection is less than 5 terabytes of data, so you don't have to go nuts with storage space, just make sure you leave room to grow. So if everything right now barely fits on a 1 terabyte drive, get something larger like a 4 terabyte drive so you won't have to upgrade again in a few months. For software, we need mainly 2 things. Of course, if you want to, you can build elaborate systems that also provide more services than just media delivery. But in the beginning, don't overcomplicate things. Just go with Plex and Tailscale. Plex is the software that will allow you to browse and consume your media collection, and Tailscale is the VPN that will allow you to deliver your content outside your local network. Both are free to use, with some caveats, and if you want to simplify things even further, you don't even need Tailscale. Plex has the ability to stream your content right out of the box, but it requires opening up a port, which I'm not a fan of. Tailscale does that in a more elegant way without having to expose anything to the outside world. I'll show you how that looks in a bit, but let's first talk about Plex. Plex is not the only game in town. There's a ton of other applications that can do the exact same thing. There's Jellyfin, MB, and many more, but for me, Plex hits the sweet spot. It's super easy to set up, and it's available for pretty much every device out there. Phones, tablets, your NAS, even some TVs come with it pre-installed. Some features though, like streaming outside your local network, are behind a paywall. There are 2 options there. You can either use the Remote Watch Pass, which is specific to streaming, or you can get the Plex Pass, which has more features than just the streaming. I would say at the beginning just see how Plex works and only use it in your local network. If you like it and want to use it as your main service, go with a lifetime Plex Pass. You pay more upfront, but it's a one-time payment and not a recurring subscription. It used to be cheaper, but I think sometime last year they bumped the price quite considerably. I still think it's good value for money, but the overall sentiment from the community is that it's too expensive now. Once a year though, they do offer some heavy discounts. This Black Friday, for example, they had a 40% discount across all their offerings. So if you're willing to wait, you can get the lifetime pass for a good price. Personally, I have the lifetime pass and I couldn't be happier. Aside from supporting the development of an excellent product, you also get some great features in return, like the ability to download your media when you're offline, the ability to skip intros, etc. Now, about Tailscale. It's a service that I recommend using even if you're not planning to stream your media. So, what does it do exactly? It creates a secure private network so all your devices can connect to each other as if they're on the same local network, no matter where they are. So if you're abroad and you want to grab a file from your NAS, you just type in your NAS's Tailscale IP address and you're good to go. Setup is extremely easy. You install Tailscale on your devices, you sign in, and you're done. It won't take you more than a couple of minutes to set up. On my NAS and phone, I just have it on all the time. It doesn't have any impact on your network or in the device, and since I'm using it constantly to stream music when I'm outside my local network, I don't want to be bothered turning it on and off. Even though it's not something complex, you can even turn it on right from the home screen. To make Tailscale work with Plex, it's just a matter of adding your Plex server's Tailscale address to the custom server access URL field. And that's it, you're done. Plex's remote access option is disabled, so the only way to access the Plex server is through my Tailscale network. Now, let's talk about music and photos. For music, I'm using Plex Amp, which is Plex's dedicated audio player. It's lightweight, fast, and has a ton of cool little features. I still use Apple Music to discover new artists, but for my own collection, Plex Amp is my main music player. When it comes to photos, you have many different options. Even though Plex has the ability to host photo libraries, it's a bit limited, so I'm using Image for that, or however it's called. I'm not exactly sure about the pronunciation. There are other solutions, but I found Image to be the better of the bunch. It has all the goodies of modern apps like face recognition, geotagging, etc., and it's free to use. If you continue using it though, I would suggest buying a license just to support the people working on it. Installing Image is more involved than installing Plex. It's fast to get up and running, but you need to know about Docker and how to set things up. But don't be scared, it's not rocket science. I think it took me maybe a couple of minutes to set up. So, to summarize, you can use Plex for movies and TV shows, Plex Amp for music, Image for photos, and finally Tailscale for secure remote access and streaming. With these 4 things, you'll be able to cut down on your subscriptions quite considerably. In the future, you could also expand into other self-hosted services that could trim down costs even further. For example, you could host your own file syncing service, password managers, even your own email. But that's something for another video. The easiest thing you can do right now is set up your own media collection. It gives you the biggest payoff for the least amount of effort. Before you dive in, setting up your system and buying new hardware, there are a couple more things to keep in mind. Self-hosting will require some maintenance. First off, backups. Make sure you have a second copy of your data somewhere. I'll have a dedicated post about that on my Patreon because it's a huge topic and it deserves more than just a quick mention. But what you need to be aware of is that hard drives will fail eventually, so treat backup storage as part of the overall cost of the setup. And of course, dedicate some time to actually perform your backups. Another thing to consider is the time you have to spend for other generic maintenance tasks like updating apps, checking your drives, or replacing hardware when something ages out. It's not a time sink, but it's something to be aware of. And that is it really. I would say start small, get things running on your local network, and go from there. Once you have an initial library set up, you'll realize how great it is. If you want me to go deeper into backups or expand into other self-hosted services, let me know. I would love to cover more of that in future videos. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one.